they don't play around with the vacations at all. You still have your traditional February and April vacation, and your December vacation is pretty much.
Well, we're trying to save every dollar we can save.
Right.
And
Practically.
version 6 takes those days in January and February and moves them up all to January and just extends the December, January time period to all in one block.
Like a
So
college
that-
break.
so you
Like a
have
college
3
break,
weeks
3
off.
weeks off.
That's a long time.
3 weeks off.
I don't know of a parent that would.
But again,
volunteer to have
you're gonna have to,
Less disruptive.
you're gonna have to open the buildings for sports, unless you're gonna decide we don't have sports programs
We're
anymore.
starting to look at what's happening in other parts of the country. There are schools, for example, in North Carolina that are on for 8 weeks, off for 2, this kind of.
Those places that go back August 1st, I mean,
Right.
to school, in
Austin.
Florida, or places like
Austin,
that.
Texas,
Austin,
like that.
Texas, yeah, I mean, but there's different reasons. I mean, so some of it is climate related too, and now you've got kids in school in August when the temperature might be 93 degrees outside, that's another issue too at that time of year.
Perhaps it'd be worthwhile to look into what it would take to put in some zoning for just the athletic facilities, so that the gymnasiums would be, could be positive, you could leave those on full, and the rest of it would be to keep it from freezing.
Yeah, I don't know if that's possible given but I think it's something, I'm sure Kyle's probably looked at it before, but.
But it's worth, because
I'll
even if,
look at it further.
Yeah.
even if we don't change the calendar, it would be wise for weekends. When, youth basketball's here on Saturdays, the whole wing is
Right.
heated.
David, I guess one of the things is I think it's important for you to get some sort of consensus, because if you come back with a calendar that starts before Labor Day, I don't know if you're gonna get approval of that. I know I'm against it. I know Jerry's against it. I don't know if Maureen would consider it, I guess.
I'd have to know that there was a substantial savings. I know the 3 elementary schools we could probably shut down, and not allow anybody in without impacting the school sports
No,
program.
it's going to impact a lot of.
Yeah.
Youth sports,
yeah.
right,
It's a
so
lot.
I'm thinking, if we look strictly at the schools, how much would we really save at the middle school and high school, given they're not zoned? And they would have to be on to a minimum of 60? If we're talking a few thousand, maybe the disruption's not worth it. If you talk tens of thousands, then.
There's a lot of discussion, and obviously from athletics, you have the athletic teams getting back underway, and right at the start of August, and of course then you'll hear from Wayne and the maintenance staff that will say they need the time to clean the buildings in the summer, and it's short as it is, and actually every one of our buildings is used throughout the summer months. The Hood School has outside private special education program is coming in and using that facility. The town's recreation program uses the Little School. So these outside groups are always vying for the schools, and then we're trying to get the buildings polished and ready to go. So I do recognize starting before Labor Day shortens that.
From an energy standpoint, if you did look at eliminating the April vacation and adding those days on to the December vacation, or maybe a couple of them onto December and even one onto the February, would give you an opportunity to keep the buildings closed a little bit longer in December and February, and just do away with the April vacation. Although I know traditionally a lot of people have plans for April vacation, but like everything else, you'd have to adjust. That would seem to make more sense and to be more continuity than spreading it out all over the place like that. I don't know. Conceptually, it just seems that the summer ends on Labor Day and school begins the day after, and to come back for a couple of days, it's never seemed like you got into the flow of things anyway.
I personally don't have a problem with starting school before Labor Day. I mean, it's, I would even consider putting it, starting school at the end of August, so that you get, that full week before
But why?
Labor Day.
I'm asking if you're going to change something
so
that's
that
been.
we can, so we can, if we can close buildings during the colder months when we would normally heat them instead. You know, if that will provide a savings, if we can find days where we can keep the entire building closed, or, you know, keep the heat way down, then I could support that, I don't have a problem with it.
I think the savings will be minimal and the disruption isn't worth the minimal savings. If as Maureen said, I think if we can be shown it'd be $50,000 or $100,000, I mean, I think more of the savings, and again, this is something that I'm not, you know, saying we're going to negotiate this, but more of the savings would be if we went to a 180-day school year and that was negotiated in the teacher's contract.
Because the school buildings not only
That's
are
very
they open
difficult.
for
Right, I'm just
athletics,
saying that.
but the administrative and office staff, they're full year
Well,
employees.
they have to be there, right?
So-
Or take occasion.
Right.
And even the
That's another
custodians,
issue.
we can't just,
That's another issue, you're right, custodians,
I would-
administrators, those people,
they're full year
not
employees.
necessarily off all of those.
Right,
those
so I
days.
just haven't, unless it's zoned, okay, I mean, you guys, you're in the office, if we shut the building down, but say you have to show up, are you gonna
Well, that's
appreciate
what this is all
55
about.
degrees?
Oh.
Bad working conditions,
Very
unsafe
well.
So I
working
think
conditions.
we'd have to
Well,
really
they're gonna take that
quantify it.
time off.
I think that's the answer, is to quantify it, and that should be something that we can do, because we can figure out what it costs per degree day, and
Right.
figure out how many degree days typically occur during that time period.
Mhm.
And then, if we could get an idea of it.
Yeah, but I'm just curious, do you have a number, how many districts go back before Labor Day, how many go traditionally after?
I don't have the number, I'm gonna predict that more of them today are going before Labor Day than, say, 5 years ago.
Yeah, I think that, I know Wilmington does, and,
Yeah, I think we're leaning more toward, as a traditional calendar, we're leaning more, I don't wanna say we're the minority, but I think it's a decreasing.
Is
I
that,
think it's
it-
44.6%.
Is that a
is
good number?
that in an effort to
Pretty sure.
add to the school calendar and avoid encroaching on the 4th of July?
It is, right. And for example, in Westford, as Jerry mentioned, I think the length of this teaching year is 187 or 188 days. Not for students, but there
Same as
are
Berlin,
additional days.
187 days.
Right.
That includes the snow days or not?
No, I think it's 187
And I-
days for teachers.
Right.
I think if we were extending the school calendar, the number of days, we would have to choose between the 4th of July or Labor Day, because you'd
Well,
encroach on one or the other.
but I think-
Our action just went to decreasing the number of school days, so,
And I really do, I think if you eliminate that April vacation and took, I'd rather do that than go back before Labor Day and take those days and add those vacation days onto the December vacation where it's coldest.
I like that option better.
I do too.
Well, version 5 has in April,
Yeah, took out
this, but the 19th is a holiday anyway. That's a holiday anyway,
Mhm.
Patriots Day.
Right.
So
That's
closing on the
important.
16th.
A lot of us like to run the marathon.
Great.
But you could tweak version 5 so that the start date is after Labor Day and maybe decrease some of those Fridays.
Right, like,
Which the buildings may have to be open for athletics and offices anyway.
See, I'm more concerned with educational continuity. Than I agree we need to try to save energy, but I see in all of these efforts to save energy, which I think is a good idea, I see too much disruption in the school year.
for at least 2 years, parents will be dropping the kids off when there's no school.
I look at I look at February and I just, you know, especially in version 4, but even in version 5, you've got 7 days off in February, which is a short month. And even in version 5, you end up with 7 days off and 13 days in school. I just don't see that as being productive.
Yeah.
I just don't. So I guess in this case, I'm a traditionalist and I strongly support going back after Labor Day. And I can't support the discontinuity that I see here for the education of the kids.
That's sort of what I know, I would say on version 4, and some of the administrators, the 4-day week.
Right.
But, you know, if you look at it from the standpoint, look at the white area to see where is there less of a breakup.
Right. Well, my concern would be what happens in those 2 months where they just, I'm just worried about focus, losing momentum, because that's a lot earlier in the school year, you know, December, January, February. And the kids are just really starting to kind of really get, I mean, obviously they've been there for 3 months, but they're really into the middle of the meaty subjects and things like that. So I think these are all good ideas to, or worthy attempts in terms of saving energy, but I'm just not so sure it would work.
But what about version 3?
I like version 5, but I disagree with before Labor Day, if it can be avoided. And in order to avoid starting before Labor Day, and also addressing Mel's concern of, you know, all the choppiness, where you have extended Martin Luther King, extended February, and extended Patriots, if you eliminated the extension of Fridays, you recapture those 3 days. But you do what Jerry suggests, you close on April and add it to the December.
Are you open it?
You open it.
Right, right. So I think there's a mix that could be
But I think
formulated.
I think the problem with all of it
It's
is
a good direction.
we can't be sure that we can really shut the buildings. And once that boiler starts going, there goes your savings up the chimney.
That Christmas vacation's from December 18th until January 4th. That's a long vacation.
Right.
Well-
To be honest, we are seeing more and more families who are, you know, extending vacations on either side. We see it around Thanksgiving, we see it again in February, the week before, the week after. That is, from a school perspective, very disruptive. And clearly, the majority of families children are not going to school, but increasingly more and more families are taking their children out earlier, the week before, or the week after.
Travel's easier.
Right, and also less expensive in some
Right.
cases. The week after, in February, as we know, the New Hampshire vacation week is the week traditionally after, and the same thing in April. We know that March and April and May are going to be governed by the MCAS test. Whether it's actually quite startling to see all of those required days put in here where the school is shutting down simply for one MCAS test or the other.
Well, that's my other concern with taking a lot of days off in February is MCAS preparation. So that was another concern I had with 4 and 5, the additional days off in February. So I guess you don't really have a
Well, I
consensus.
presented
No.
tonight, I'm not looking for a
No,
vote, and I have a
we're gonna get
recommendation,
some-
but I see this as the kind of, you know, put quotes around it, smart reorganization, but it's this kind of discussion
Mhm.
that I know we're having with the administrators to really think, this is just one aspect, how do you organize the school around the calendar? But there could be a whole lot of other issues out there as we begin to think about, can we continue to run our schools the same way that we have always experienced them, but with resources that are dramatically
Right.
decreased?
That's it, yeah.
And they're both coming up against one another on a lot of different fronts. And it's going to either force us to make decisions that perhaps we don't want to make, or, and so that's why I want to start talking about it now.
I guess just to summarize my feelings, I have a feeling, I don't have any data, that the money we save is not going to be worth the disruption, and that the big money is to be saved in the contracts, and if you can't negotiate that and change that, the money to be saved is gonna be minimal anyway, and I'm not sure it's worth the disruption. It's just mine. So now if you come back when with an official calendar, not till?
Well, traditionally, it's not until the spring, but I'd like to get this in January set, this January. Particularly if there's the potential for change, and oftentimes we wait till, too late, and then it's too late to notify parents or staff of those kinds of changes.
So we'll get some information on heat days or some way of quantifying, and some kind of information on zoning possibilities for the buildings and.
Right, and whether you can
That
really
will help
close the
a little.
buildings, so you
Yeah.
can really